What's up, guys? Welcome to Mile High Misfits. So when it comes to used cars, it is super hard to tell sometimes whether a car's value is going to go up or down. And this all has to do with supply and demand. So how many cars are out there and how many people want them? But there are plenty of other variables that factor into this, like what models were the best, what year ranges were the best, and can this car keep up with other cars on the market today for the same price range? These are just a few of the indicators that are going to tell you exactly what's going to happen to the car's price over time. And today I wanted to take a stab at the C5 Corvette by looking at the data and telling you guys exactly what I think if the C5 Corvette is going to go to the moon or through the floor. So the first thing that we want to look at is how many of these cars were actually produced. This first graphic shows the total number of C5 Corvettes that were made. This includes the base model coupe, the convertible, Z06 option, and the FRC. And as you guys can see from this graphic, there was a total of 248,715 C5 Corvettes ever made. So obviously there are a ton of C5 Corvettes out there. This next graph shows how many were made of each specific variant. This goes much more in depth on body style and shows the Z06 model values as well. When it comes to the base model, there was a total of 124,596 base model C5s made. And when it comes to the Z06 option, there were 28,388 of these cars made. And obviously over the last 20 plus years, a lot of these cars have been taken off the roads due to major accidents, fires, floods, and other factors. And obviously based on these graphs, you can see that the Z06 model is much more likely to hold its value, which brings us into our next point. So our next point of discussion is going to be how rare are different options and packages for the C5 Corvette. So the most common variant of this car is going to be the C5 Corvette base coupe. And as you guys can see from the graph, 1998, 1999, and 2000, they made a ton of these cars. But next we want to talk about the more rare model, which is the Z06 and the fixed roof coupe, or FRC. The most common years for these cars were 2002 and 2003, as you guys can see from the graph. But as I mentioned before, there were only 28,388 C5 Z06s ever made. And because of this, we can tell that the Z06 and FRC options are going to hold their value much better than the base model. But guys, that doesn't mean that the base model C5 Corvette is going to depreciate over time. That just means that the Z06 and FRC options are probably going to have a bit of a higher price tag attached to them. Obviously, the model is not the only thing that's going to dictate how much your car is worth. There's other factors that go into this, like the color of the car and options. For example, colors like fairway green metallic, purple pearl metallic, Aztec gold, and navy blue metallic are a bit more rare. And when it comes to options, a lot of people like the heads-up display, the memory steering wheel and seat option, as well as the glass targa top. And one of the most rare factory options that came on these cars is the magnesium wheels, which only came on 2.9% of C5 Corvettes ever produced. So if you have these wheels on your car, make sure to hold on to them. And the last option that factors into this is whether you have an automatic car or a 6-speed manual. The 6-speed manual usually goes for a little bit more money than the automatic versions just because they're a little bit more sought after. Now the next factor on this list is how well do these cars handle the test of time? Now obviously guys, your used car is only worth money if it's in decent condition. Tell that to the 240SX community. So let's ask the question, how well kept are most of these cars? With the sheet molded compound or SMC body panels, sheet steel hydroformed box frame, and many aluminum components around the car, these cars do very well against the test of time. And you won't find any rust on the body panels of any of these cars because they're fiberglass. And the steel frames on these cars are much less prone to rusting due to the steel being coated in zinc, or better known as galvanized. Obviously the frames can still rust if the coating is chipped off, but it's much less likely. Plus, it's a well-known fact that most C5 Corvette owners are meticulous with the upkeep on their cars, so most of these cars are going to be in much better condition than your average daily driver. So yes, for this category, I would say absolutely the majority of these cars are going to withstand the test of time tremendously. Now moving on to the Kelley Blue Book value versus MSRP. The base C5 Corvette originally sold for around $37,500 up to about $46,500 MSRP when it was first released. The Z06 model, however, was sold for around $51,200 MSRP. And obviously these cars have depreciated up to this point. So now, according to Kelley Blue Book, as of November 18th of 2024, the national average fair purchase price for a 2003 base model C5 Corvette coupe is $17,064. And for the 2003 Z06 coupe, the national average fair purchase price is $21,585. So this means that the price of a base model C5 Corvette has dropped 61.1% in the last 21 years, and for the Z06 model, it's dropped about 57.8% in the last 21 years. And brand new cars on average lose about 30% of their value within the first 2 years, and every year after that, they lose about 8 to 12%. So these cars have held their value a little bit better than average. And I've actually seen these cars hold pretty steady in their value over the last few years, but in the last year, I've actually seen them pick up in value a little bit. But this could have been due to the COVID-19 pandemic making all used cars extremely expensive, so take that with a grain of salt. But I do remember about 5 years ago, I could get a C5 Corvette for much cheaper than I could now. I would say that 2019 was probably the rock bottom that we'll ever see for these cars. And I didn't factor inflation into these values, so this isn't really an apples to apples comparison, but you guys get the picture. So now that we've seen the data, let me tell you guys exactly what I think is going to happen to the C5 Corvette in the next few years. So over the last couple years, I have seen the popularity of the C5 Corvette grow significantly on social media. And I think this is happening because it's one of the few cars out there that you can still get with a V8, 350 plus horsepower, rear-wheel drive, and a 6-speed manual for under $15,000. Plus, these cars handle extremely well on the track. I think that people in the car community are starting to wake up and realize that this car is an amazing bang for your buck. I've seen tons of content creators on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram all getting into C5 Corvettes. And that's awesome to see, but of course, on the other hand, that's going to inflate the price of the C5 Corvette. I really do think that 2019 was the cheapest that we're ever going to see these cars again, so if you're one of those people that's looking to buy a C5 Corvette, but you're waiting for the right time to buy, or you're waiting for the prices to drop a little bit, I would say that right now is going to be your best time to buy because I don't think that these cars are going to get any cheaper. And if you're really looking to get a cheaper C5 Corvette, I would suggest looking on Facebook Marketplace for maybe a car that needs some love or has higher miles or maybe has a lot of modifications, because a lot of times most people are looking for an unmolested C5 Corvette that has mostly stock components. So if you find something that's kind of been abused a little bit, you can really save a lot of money by buying something like that. And in some cases, you can even find C5 Corvettes for under $10,000. If you're looking to buy a cheaper C5 Corvette, I would suggest staying away from dealerships because you're going to be paying a much higher premium than if you bought from a private seller. Over the coming years, a lot of these cars are going to be taken off the road due to accidents, so they're going to be increasingly hard to find. So I think that both the Z06 and the base model are going to start rising in the next few years. And this seems to be on track because usually when classic cars start to rise in value, this happens between the 20 and 30 year mark. So don't miss out on your opportunity to buy a C5 Corvette for a decent price. But guys, there you have it. That's exactly what I think is going to happen to the price of the C5 Corvette in the coming years. And although this car isn't really rare and it's not considered a classic, the car community loves the C5 Corvette, and I think it's going to hold its value extremely well. But I would love to hear what you guys think. So let me know in the comments below exactly what you think is going to happen to the price of the C5 Corvette. But that's it for this week, guys. If you found this video helpful, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for future content. I'll catch you guys next week. Later.